Hi, I'm Susie Taylor, and I'm here today to talk to you about story. Not just any story, but your story and how it relates to the way that you operate your business and you work with your clients. So let's get started. All right. So let me start with the simple truth. Everyone has a story. It's not up for debate. If you've lived a life, and I'm assuming that you have since you're watching this video, whether it's been messy, magical, or somewhere in between, you've got a story. The real question is, how are you telling it? Because here's what I believe. Your story isn't about you, it's about who you're meant to serve. Now, I know that sounds a little backwards. After all, our stories are personal, right? They're ours. They're how we make sense of the world around us. But I've learned something in my 40 plus years as a writer, a caregiver, a business owner, and a mom. The most powerful stories aren't the ones that impress people, they're the ones that connect to us. Now, we're always told that in business is all about marketing, strategy, and sales. But what drives all of those? Trust. And what builds trust faster than anything? Story. So when someone hears your story and sees themselves in it, they don't just like you, they trust you. And that trust, that's what leads to connection, loyalty, and clients who keep coming back. Your story isn't fluff. It's not self-indulgent. It's your most powerful tool, not just because it reminds you why you started, but because it helps your customers believe you're the one who can help them solve their problems. You've got to remember that your story isn't the star. Your client is. When you connect with your clients, you increase trust by 73%. You increase engagement by almost 2.5% when your story centers on your client's needs. And people don't remember statistics. They remember the stories. So that's why I created a 5-part framework that I call CHARM. It helps people tell their stories that connect and convert. So let's start with clarity. Clarity is not about having every detail mapped out or memorizing your entire life timeline. It's about knowing why your story matters and what role it plays in your business. Now, when I'm talking about telling your story, I don't mean writing your memoir or unloading your life's challenges during a sales call. Clarity means understanding the through line, that golden thread that runs through your experiences and ties directly into how you show up for the people you serve. For me, that clarity came after I lost my son, Evan. My oldest son was born 14 weeks early. He was blind. He had cerebral palsy. He had seizures. He never walked, never talked, wore diapers his whole life. He was fed through a feeding tube, but he was also the most radiant, fun human being I have ever met. For 28 years, I was his primary caregiver. I gave up a career as a newspaper reporter to be a mom, not just to him, but to his 2 younger brothers. There were years when I didn't write anything except grocery lists and therapy schedules. Those years, I felt invisible. Then on June 18th, 2021, he died. And with his death came silence, the kind of silence that you can either hide in or grow from. I realized in that silence that I still had a voice, and it was time to use it again, but this time to help people tell their stories. I realized that I had spent years using my skills to care for him, advocate for him, fight for him. And when he was gone, I could use those same skills, writing, empathy, strategy, to help others. That was the beginning of my business rebirth. The clarity came not from his death, but from his life. He had shown me what it meant to live with purpose, and that's the thread that still runs through my work today. Next is heart. This one's tough, especially for us professionals who like to keep it polished and tidy, but I'll say it plainly. Your clients don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be real. When I tell people about Evan, I don't share his story to make anyone feel sorry for me. I share it because it shaped me. It's the reason I lead with compassion. It's the reason I care so deeply about legacy and purpose. It's the reason I work with business owners who want to create something that matters. Your story is how you show people your humanity. That's how trust is built, not through bullet points and bios, but through shared experiences and honest emotion. Now, heart doesn't mean that you have to tell a heavy story. It just means that you have to show up as yourself. And believe me, people can really feel the difference. Heart is where you stop trying to be impressive and start being real. Heart is what makes people lean in. It's the vulnerability, the emotion, the honesty. When you speak with heart, you invite your audience to feel, not just to listen. Let's move to actionable. This is where the rubber meets the road, because once you've clarified your story and let a little heart shine through, it's time to ask, how can this actually serve someone else? Stories aren't just for inspiration. They should move people to act. I like to use a simple 3-step prompt. It works for keynotes, coffee chats, even website copy. What happened? What did you learn? How does that show up in your work today? Here's an example using my story. So what happened? I spent nearly 3 decades caregiving for my son. What did I learn? Purpose doesn't need a platform. Legacy comes from love. And how does it show up today? I help business owners turn their own purpose into words that matter through websites, messaging, and story brand strategies. That's an actionable story, not just an origin story. You don't have to write a novel. You just have to connect the dots for your audience so they know why your story makes you the right person to help them. You start small, even if it's messy, even if it hurts, but start. When you share a story in business, always give your audience a takeaway. What can they do today because of what you've said? Now let's talk about being relatable. Relatability is where the magic happens. When people relate to your story, they start to see you as someone who gets them, and that's the beginning of trust. One of the biggest mistakes people make when sharing their story is trying to sound impressive, but relatable always wins over remarkable. People don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your me too. You don't have to have the same experience as your audience. You just need to express something that resonates with them. No, most people haven't raised a severely disabled child, but most people have sacrificed something big for someone they've loved. Loss, starting over, chasing a dream, fighting for your kids, trying to make a difference, those are universal themes. You don't need the same story as your clients. You just need the same feeling. That's where relatability lives. So think about the feelings inside your story, not just the facts. What emotions does it hold? What kind of hope does it offer? That's what makes it useful, not just interesting. And last but not least, memorable. Let me ask you something. What do you want people to remember after they hear your story? Not the details, but the message. People may forget the dates and milestones, but they'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember your courage, your authenticity. They'll remember the way your story helped them believe in their story. Evan never set out to build a legacy. He never spoke a word, but he left a legacy anyway through joy, resilience, and love. And now I carry that forward in every client conversation, every project, every presentation, even this one. That's how story works. It moves from one person to another. It multiplies. It lives on, not just in memory, but in action. So let's recap. Start with clarity. Know your purpose. Show your authentic humanity with your heart. Turn your experience into value. Give your audience, your clients, something to take action on. Connect through a shared emotion. Be relatable and leave a lasting, memorable impression. The story I tell isn't one of loss, it's one of voice. I'm a writer, a teacher, a marketer. I help other people tell their stories with charm so they can build businesses with heart. And I believe that your story matters. It matters for your brand, it matters for your customer, and most of all, it matters for you. So as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. The story you're sitting on, the one you think is too small, too painful, too ordinary, might be the exact story someone else needs to hear. Not to be inspired, not to be impressed, but to feel connected, to feel seen, to feel like they're not alone. You don't have to shout your story. You just have to share it. Not to elevate yourself, but to meet someone exactly where they are. So go ahead, use your charm. Tell your story with clarity, heart, actionable insight, relatability, and a memorable message. Because your story isn't just yours. It's a bridge to the people you were meant to serve. I'd love to stay in touch with you. You can connect with me online through Facebook or LinkedIn. You can join. I've got a community on Facebook for Susie Taylor Marketing and Susie Taylor Writes. I also have another community called Your Biz Marketing Hub. But most importantly, I have a free charm storytelling workbook for you that you can find at susiesfreegift.com. And if you have any questions, need to get in touch, you can do that through Facebook or LinkedIn. And I'm so glad that I was able to share with you today about why your story matters and how you can use charm to tell it.